On December 14, 2024, South Korean officials delivered the impeachment declaration of President Yoon Suk Yeol to both the presidential office and the Constitutional Court. The impeachment motion, which was passed by the National Assembly, comes after lawmakers censured Yoon over his mishandling of a martial law declaration earlier this month. The Constitutional Court will now decide on the president's removal, with a decision expected in the next 6 months. If Yoon is ousted, a snap election will be called. The motion received support from opposition parties, as well as from members of Yoon's own party, ensuring the two-thirds threshold necessary for impeachment was met. Following the impeachment of President Yoon, acting President Han Duck-Soo addressed the nation, assuring that the South Korean government would ensure no vacuum in state affairs. Han emphasized the importance of maintaining stability in both security and foreign relations, particularly with allies such as the United States and Japan. In Georgia, lawmakers have elected Mikheil Kavelashvili, a hardline critic of the West, as the country's new president. The election, held on December 14, 2024, came amid significant protests against the government's decision to halt the country's European Union accession talks. Kavelashvili, who has been outspoken in his anti-Western views, was the sole candidate nominated for the presidency. His election is seen as a blow to pro-EU forces in Georgia, especially after the ruling party's move to freeze the EU accession process until 2028. The protests outside Parliament reflected the widespread opposition to the government's stance, with many citizens still hoping for Georgia's eventual integration into the European Union. In Brazil, former Defense Minister Walter Braga Netto has been arrested following accusations that he was involved in plotting a coup to overturn the results of the 2022 presidential election. Braga Netto, a close ally of former President Jair Bolsonaro, denies any involvement in the alleged coup attempt. Federal police served search warrants at his residence in Rio de Janeiro and at the home of a retired colonel in Brasília. The arrest is part of an ongoing investigation into the events surrounding the January 8 attack on Congress. This marks another significant development in the probe into efforts to prevent the peaceful transfer of power after President Lula's victory. Families in Gaza City mourn their loved ones after 7 people were killed in an Israeli airstrike on a former school being used as a shelter for displaced people. On December 14, 2024, the Israeli military struck 2 schools in Gaza City, Ala Muqaddesa and Majda Wasila, leading to the deaths of 7 individuals, including a woman and her baby, and injuring more than 30 others. The schools were housing families whose homes had been destroyed in the ongoing conflict. Mahmoud Bassal, a spokesperson for the Civil Emergency Services, condemned the attack, blaming Israeli forces for targeting civilians and refugee shelters. The Israeli military, while acknowledging the attack, said it had targeted Hamas fighters and weapon caches in the area, but took precautions to minimize civilian casualties. In sports news, Fiorentina midfielder Eduardo Bove made his return to the club's training ground after undergoing a life-saving procedure. On December 1, 2024, Bove collapsed during a Serie A match against Inter Milan, prompting immediate medical intervention. The 22-year-old midfielder has been under intensive medical care since the incident, but he made a positive recovery and is now in good spirits.